How on earth do we pick the bones out of that one? But that is what we're going to attempt to do today. Yeah, the Australian Grand Prix delivered a sumptuous race, I think you have to say. A change of trousers was required after that last few laps, but there's plenty of other talking points across the weekend, so let's get straight into talking about those on the webinar today. Now, it being the Australian Grand Prix, I bet you were expecting some Tin Pot joke where the presentation was upside down or, something silly like that. But no, we're not going to have that. I'd like to think that my comedy is a little bit more highbrow than that. So on the Friday, I'm joking, turn that around. Scott in the edit, turn that around. Thank you. So on the Friday, it was revealed that Michael Masi was at this Grand Prix, the first Grand Prix that he has attended since the race that must not be named. ESPN took the liberty of announcing that on social media, which I'm sure led to a lovely comments section, so let's just take a look at that now. Ah yes, exactly as I suspected. Rather suspiciously though, the first race that Michael Masi returns to the F1 paddock is also the race that's the furthest away from Silverstone. In terms of on-track action on the Friday, I actually missed most of it because it was on at 4 AM and I have work. In fact, I think this is an appropriate moment to do a minute's applause out of respect for F1 fans in that corner of the world, having to get up at like 4 all season. Who actually was fastest in Friday practice? Alonso? Oh no, it was Max Verstappen. On to Saturday then, and after the win in Saudi Arabia, everyone was expecting big things from Sergio Perez, and the first step of that is, of course, a good performance in qualifying. But actually, I think it is time to throw a little bit of respect onto Sergio Perez's name, so that's what we're going to do now. Out. Without setting a single lap. Back of the grid. Why do we bother? Honestly, our best chance of a title fight this season, last place. Ocon, meanwhile, was eliminated by 0.007 of a second in Q2. I mean, that is absolutely disgusting. I would be furious if that was me. The only thing that I can think of that lasts less time than 0.007 of a second is Ferrari's title hopes. I mean, to be honest, I really was hoping to give the Ferrari jokes a rest in this video, but they just keep writing themselves at this point. Verstappen got pole, of course, on the Saturday, only to the surprise of people that have been living in a cave for 3 months. And a Mercedes second and third, so maybe that side pod invention isn't as washed as everyone keeps saying it is. Now time for the real meat and drink of the video, and that is, of course, the race itself. First point to note is credit to the editor of the race highlights on the official F1 channel. Getting that down to 8 minutes and 15 seconds is a phenomenal feat. I have to say, you probably deserve a raise. On the Banger-race-ometer, I'm going to say it's just slightly in the banger section. The reason it's not a full-blown banger is because, the middle section of the race wasn't that exciting. The first quarter, absolute chaos. Last kind of quarter, absolute chaos. But there was a bit of a lull there, so it wasn't an absolute banger. You have to say the changes that were made to the Chicken Nugget Grand Prix were successful. They basically have taken out 2 of the corners. Well, the old turns 9 and 10 now no longer exist, and it's one big straight. And they put a DRS zone there. So basically into the new turn 9 was lunge central for the entire Grand Prix. And it made for some terrific overtakes. Thanks to everyone on Twitter that explained that to this F1 noob right here. George Russell clearly had his porridge before the race today, as he managed to overtake Verstappen into turn 1, which I don't think anyone had on their bingo card. And then at turn 3, well, F1 fans generally know the outcome when Verstappen and Hamilton go into a corner like that. But inexplicably, that corner ended like that. How? How has the Ferrari managed to elbow its way in and take an L when literally everyone in existence was expecting Hamilton and Verstappen just to collect each other? Ferrari have managed to grab defeat when no one was even paying attention to them. No one was watching. Everyone was fully expecting absolute bedlam between the Mercedes and the Red Bull, and then Ferrari have just stolen a march on all of them and beached the car. Leclerc out the race. Out. Gone. I actually feel quite sorry for Charles Leclerc at this point. Like, it is... the incident is just such bad luck, to be honest, and it's just not going his way, is it? And then began... Oh, sorry, no, I'm not really sure how that's got in there. Yes, so then began the FIA red flagging bonanza of 2023. Alex Albon's rear tyres decide to have the day off and let go into turn 6, and he's in the wall. But then race control red flagged the race. Everyone immediately thought, oh, that'll be because of tyre wall damage, but it turns out it's because there's gravel on the track. That's slightly odd, because that's just debris, and, you know, they clear that up all the time under safety car conditions. But, you know, we all just go with it, fine, they know what they're doing. It was actually pretty nice in the end, because it completely destroyed George Russell's race, who had already pitted for tyres, and then they red flagged it so everyone else could get a free pit stop. So that basically meant when he broke down after the restart, it was a lot less painful than had he done it from first place. But before the restart, there was absolute chaos at the back. Hamilton was controlling the pace at like Vauxhall Corsa speed, and it confused the hell out of so many cars at the back of the grid that they nearly piled into each other. Magnussen actually, as you can see in the picture there, had to take to the gravel trap to avoid all the cars that were in front of him, and promptly dispersed all the gravel that had just been swept away back onto the track. So it was in the middle part of the race that it settled down a little bit, to be fair. Although, from now on, when referring to the Red Bull, it will not be called the drag reduction system, it will be called the drag removal system. I mean, Verstappen had Hamilton for breakfast round the outside into turn 9. Perez had Zhou Guanyu for breakfast, Ocon for lunch, and Piastri for tea, to be honest. And Carlos Sainz as well, it has to be said, did a good job of working his way up through the field, because his race was also ruined by the red flag. You know, I just hope that nothing happens later in the race that completely ruins that. Anyway, the good news is that Verstappen is in fact human, because he made a bit of a mistake into turn 13. So that is devastating news for the robot conspiracy theorists, but to be honest, I was nearly one of them, such has been his impeccable form this season. So after a few laps where it's chilled out a bit and we've all, caught our breath after the chaotic start, Magnussen smashes into the wall and the FIA decide to red flag the race again. I'm very baffled by this. I didn't think that debris constituted an immediate red flag. I literally thought that was what the safety car was for. But the FIA, every single time this race, the red flag was straight out. Red flag it, grid start. We're doing grid start again. It got to the stage where I was like, why have they brought the safety car here? What's the point? I'm very confused as to why the policy in this race seemed to be, oh no, there's debris on the track, out comes the red flag. That being said, petition to sack the safety car, because it was extremely exciting. And we got 3 grid starts for our money this weekend. And oh my dive bombs, it was absolute carnage for the final grid restart, which we're going to look at now in more detail. So, lap 57 of the Grand Prix. Restarting the race, and into turn 1, Carlos Sainz spins Alonso. Then Pierre Gasly and Ocon channel their inner Spice Girls as 2 become 1, and, well, that's not how Formula 1 works. So they're completely taken out of the equation, and then Lance Stroll forgets that turn 3 exists and goes straight on. But then the FIA said, we're going to Control-Alt-Delete to all of that. It's another red flag, which resets the grid to where it was before the restart, because they hadn't completed a sector yet, apart from the Alpines that are definitely out. Oh, and Sainz, who gets a 5-second penalty for a spin on Alonso, which didn't really happen because the race got reset. In a world of classic Ferrari things, that has to be right up there at the very top. He gets a penalty for doing something in an event that didn't actually exist. Like, it wasn't part of the race in the end. I suppose the Alpines were slightly worse off. They both got taken out during a during a sector that wasn't logged at the end of the race. Like, it didn't count, didn't happen. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh because it was a shocker for Alpine and they've lost a lot of really good points, but that is gutted. Anyway, complete bedlam at the start there, and this emoji has never been more appropriate for an F1 race, partly because of how chaotic and shocking the restart was, but also because it perfectly shows how many points Ferrari got this weekend. After all that bedlam then, it was a straightforward 1-lap roll to the start line, with no overtaking, of course, in a very ironic end to the first Grand Prix that Masi returned to, since the race which must not be named. On to some of our key learnings from Australia then. We obviously do this every week. Firstly, sack the safety car, to be honest. It's much more entertaining to just do grid starts. I think we can get sufficient buy-in for that as a policy. My second point is that Melbourne looks absolutely lovely, and I'd love to visit at some point. And the last point is, hang on, we've got to wait a month until the next race. That is all we've got time for on the webinar today. I do hope you've enjoyed today's session. There was so much to unpack there. It is going to take me the full 4 weeks to get over it. But yeah, just about managed to get all that in, so that's pretty good. Didn't run out of time.